what's up guys? Welcome back to my prep for the Chicago Pro. I'm currently 8 weeks out. If you haven't been following along, welcome to the prep series. Look back at some last videos, y'all can get caught up on what's been going on, explain all the changes that have been happening. So from the last video you saw, I believe my weight was around 227, if I recall, 2 weeks ago. And now this morning I hit a body weight low of 222.6. So been about averaging a 1% body weight loss per week, which is perfect for what I wanted, even starting 20 weeks out when I was kind of preparing my, how much weight I need to bring down per week. It's kind of right on track. Obviously these last few weeks though, that rate needs to go a little slower. When body fat's getting lower, if you try to speed that rate up, which a lot of people do, they start pushing prep even harder and trying to lose more at the very end when you're most susceptible to lean tissue losses. I think you should be slowing the rate of fat loss down. So compared to other preps, this one is tracking really, really well. Looking at my photos, there's definitely like substantial change in my back. I'm starting to have glute lines in. So all for being 8 weeks out, it's a good spot to be in. My thought though is being 6 weeks out and being ready 2 weeks ahead, so I can back off on the end, and I think that'll give me a fresher, harder look. For these 2 weeks, a lot has changed as far as the feeling of prep. Definitely like the lower energy and mental fatigue is there, hunger's increased, you start thinking about food more. A little bit more sleep disturbance, and usually I wake up once a night to go to the bathroom, and then I toss and turn till it's time to get up. Digestion's been an issue, and almost every prep without fail, and just for some people it's not as effective, but usually if you're decreasing calories and body fat's getting low, the body tries to manage that deficit and prevent you from getting leaner. So the sleep disturbances, the psychological disturbances, the hunger, the fatigue, the GI, the decrease in motility, like all that's part of it. So it's just trying to manage it the best that I can, which I'm always looking at food sources to improve on decreasing gas and improving transit time, increasing fiber as I'm decreasing carbohydrates, keeping water intake up, then adding any supplements that I need to keep bowels moving properly. So that's kind of been the past little struggles, but as far as like major diet changes, there hasn't really been any. I'm down at like 200 grams of carbs, 300 grams of protein, and about 30 grams of fat. So I haven't made a lot of changes as far as that goes. The big thing here was just, dropping back cardio when I need to keep my legs fresh, managing recovery. I think that's been huge to keep progressing at the same calorie amount. Today, being a body weight low, I am doing a high day today, which is different from my last refeeds. My last refeeds, these 600-700 gram carb days, at least for me, for one, that's a lot of them my GI tract all at once. So usually I have 2 days where I'm trying to get back to normal. Then I have this huge glycogen load that takes me like another 6-7 days to get back to a little bit flatter state where I'm really getting into oxidizing more fat again. And it slows me down too much. And even looking at like the research on leptin levels and increasing energy expenditure like the day after an overfeeding period, almost right when you get back to your baseline glycogen and your low calorie diet, leptin levels are going right back to normal, and the energy increase is pretty minimal. So what actually looks more beneficial is doing diet breaks, which there's a study by Brian in 2017, the Matador study, where they dieted people for 30 weeks versus 16 weeks. But the 30-week group dieted for 2 weeks, then had a 2-week at maintenance. Dieted for 2 weeks, 2 weeks at maintenance. So the time in a calorie deficit was the same, but that group in the 30 weeks, they end up losing more body fat, and their resting energy expenditure stayed higher than the other group. There's also another study by Campbell from USF, and looking at doing calorie deficit 7 days straight versus 5 days with 2 days at maintenance. And the group with 2 days of maintenance held more lean body mass, same fat loss. So there's something to doing like a longer days of feeding versus like these short, really high bouts. And so that's kind of what I'm doing now, is I'm doing like a 300 gram carb day. I reduce cardio a little bit. So, and I can already feel the difference. Like psychologically, I feel better. Hunger is not quite as there. Just feel more energy. So I should have a good training session. So tomorrow I'll probably do the same thing, do another like 300 gram carb day. There'll be more maintenance calories. It'll be easier for me to get right back into fat loss. And you know, if I was doing with the open and weight class wasn't so much an issue, I probably would push it a little bit higher, but that is not the case here. So, but we're gonna go do a pull day today and get into training and see how these little bit of high carbs has affected me. For entering into pull day, the setup for me has always been to emphasize lats initially. It's been a weaker body part, so I start with a prime handle that is a 20-inch width, and I use it slightly supinated. I find with that slight supination and the arm internally rotated, I get the best range of motion in my lat and contraction. I can keep those elbows pulled in and driving the elbow down to the hip. And that's kind of my thought process on how I'm executing that lift. If you can look, and I'm probably leaning back maybe 15 degrees, and I'm not coming upright all the way to 90 degrees, like torso completely vertical at the top. That actually shortens the lat when you come fully upright. So I keep this slight lean back, and just the idea is just driving the elbows down to the hip. And that prime handle, that 20-inch width, I think it's perfect for like a wider guy, so you can line up your hands and wrists right in line. They're not, your wrists aren't in farther than your elbows, so you get some really good biomechanical force delivery that way. Just working up here, I'm going up to like a hard set of 6 to 10 reps, and then doing a back off set of somewhere between 12 to 15 reps. And this whole workout, it's one of my, I'm pretty low in volume right now, and that just has to do with my recovery capacity. And I'm trying to balance training enough and progressing in strength with also the fact that my calories are low, and I'm starting to have all these detriments in energy and sleep, and it's all affecting me. So there's like a minimum volume that has to happen, because I can't go so low in volume that the calorie expenditure is not there. But I also don't want to be doing so much that I'm digging myself in a hole that I can't recover from. Because one thing we do know is, like, you can reduce your training volume by quite a bit as long as you can maintain that effort and intensity and try to hold your strength as much as possible. But anyways, moving on to the second exercise, I use that same prime handle, but I move it into a neutral grip, and I do a seated low cable row, elevate myself up. And the setup I'm looking for is when I have the handle pulled all the way back, I want my wrist and elbow perfectly in line and to form 90 degrees. I don't want my elbow going past my torso, because then I'm starting to bring trap into it. And I want this exercise really to emphasize lat. And this one will put a lot of tension in the lat in the shorten phase. And so the range of motion isn't huge here, but I elevate also. And as I'm pulling that low row, I'm trying to drag it up my thigh. And that's kind of the thought. Like, you don't want to just pull it into you. You're kind of pushing it down and backwards to get the lat to fire really hard. And keeping the chest just pulled up just slightly. You don't need to fully retract the scapulus back. We're not trying to hit a lot of trap in this movement. It's more so just for lats. Same process here, working up to a set of like 6 to 10 reps, then a back off set of 12 to 15. Once I hit those, I move on to a little bit more mid-back rowing. I've switched over to doing a Smith machine bent over row, and it's definitely a different setup. I use an incline bench to brace my chest, to take some load off my lower back and to keep the movement very, very strict. So I lean into that incline bench. I take about 1.5 width shoulder grip, so it's a little bit wider, keeping my elbows flared a little bit more. I'm pulling that bar up to about sternum level, so it's definitely more of an upper back movement, really trying to drive the elbows up and control it down with the traps. So you'll feel it kind of like mid-lower trap when you're doing it. Not a lot of like upper trap fibers getting involved. Set of 6 to 10 reps, then a back off set, 12 to 15 reps. Third exercise, we're moving into a wide grip lat pull down. And my other back day, I do rack chins, and I love them. And I think it hits the teres major really hard, a lot of the upper lat fibers and lower trap fibers. But it is a limited range of motion, but I wanted to do another variation of it and be pretty fixed position. So I'm using just a pull down, straight bar with a pretty wide grip, and just pulling it down to about brow level or a little higher. So I'm really overloading the lengthened phase of the movement. You won't, and keep my elbows flared, I keep the torso a little bit more upright than I was before. You're definitely going to feel it more in the right underneath the armpit, and still going up to like 6 to 10 reps, then backing down for 12 to 15 reps. From there, I'll move on to another upper back rear delt exercise, and this is coined from Dante, but I brace myself on an incline bench, and I take a little short barbell with 25-pound plates that have handles on them. And so I grip those plates, but it keeps my arms really internally rotated. So I'm driving the elbows like straight up to the ceiling. And the idea is to use rear delts, but also it's okay to have some scapular retraction. It's like a compound rear delt exercise. And keeping in that grip really wide, you start out with a pretty good amount of tension just on the rear delts. And I rest pause this set. So I'm doing a set of 15 to 20. I'll hit failure point, rest 20 seconds, go to failure again, rest 20 seconds, then go to failure again. And add up those reps. So basically looking to hit like 25 to 30 reps total for within those 3 sets. And that's all I do, just that one all-out set. Then I move on to my isolation work from there, just doing rear delt, pec deck fly. And you can look at my grip. I have it as far in as I can get it. And I'm actually gripping where the handle rotates. So it keeps me, my shoulder really extended out far. I'm having to protract the scapula rather than retract them and get a lot of trap involved. And I just do 2 straight sets here. So I try to hit something between 15 to 20 reps, stay with the same weight, and just go to failure again. You gotta remember, like with rear delts, in every back move I do today, rear delts are getting hit. So it doesn't take a lot of isolation work on top of it. Rear delts can handle a good amount of volume, but I just need a little bit extra isolation on the end of it. Then moving on to biceps, I do a preacher curl single arm and a rest pause. So I do just start with my left arm. I work up to a failure set of around 10 to 12 reps, rest 20 seconds, go to failure again, rest 20 seconds, go to failure again. Then I go on and do the same thing with the other arm. You see, like a lot of this rest pause, I do it on my like isolation movements because they're not as taxing as doing like a rest pause on your compound movements. And when you're in contest prep, guys, like you will not be able to recover if you're trying to rest pause your compound moves. Like I usually tell people, like as you progress in prep and you notice like recovery is starting to drop, like that's when you should be adjusting your volume and dropping out set extenders, like drop sets, rest pause, force reps or negatives. Like that stuff's very, very taxing and hard to recover from. And at least for what we're trying to do is stimulate muscle hypertrophy. We don't need to, just to maintain muscle, so we don't even need so much stimulus to even grow. We're going to grow as much as we can, but at the same time, you have to be reasonable at where you are in your prep. I'm in the later stages of prep, so it's more reasonable for me to just maintain. Last exercise for my back bicep day, was just a dumbbell hammer curl, 2 straight sets, 12 to 15 reps. I dropped weight and then did another straight set there. See, I'm using straps on them, which I know people give you some shit using straps on dumbbells, but I do have some like golfer's elbow, so I'm trying to alleviate that as much as possible. And I put my palm at the very bottom of the dumbbell, so I have to use a lot of wrist flexion, extension when doing them, and it really hits your brachioradialis that way, rather than like gripping in the middle of the dumbbell. So that wrapped up back in biceps. So I think total I had like 17 work sets for the entire workout, which 9 of those were directly for back. I'll take that back. No, I had 2, 4, 12 that would have counted for total back. Like we count lats and traps into that, then 2 direct sets isolation for rear delts, and then 5 sets for biceps. And those are just working sets, so those aren't counting my build-up sets. And I really believe if you're counting volume, you need to count your hard sets that are stimulating reps to failure, and then also considering volume, you need to count in like how much weight multiplied by the reps you were doing. So you could have some hard sets of like 3 reps, but that volume is not going to be very high. So you do need enough volume to give a hypertrophy response, but at a high enough effort level. Last thing, hit some abs. So I do hanging leg raises. I definitely can feel a difference in like lower abdomen contraction and hypertrophy. And I do rest pause on these because it gives me a goal every time that I come to do them. Because sometimes you just throw in abs and you just, I find myself not progressing them somehow. I just throw them at the end. So this way I can hit as many as I can get, rest 20 seconds, go to failure again, rest 20 seconds, and then go to failure again. Then I move on to just a bench crunch, which it's kind of a strange move, but my idea here was to really contract the upper part of the abs really hard and hold it like a pause, like I am in doing my posing. And I wanted to build up good abdominal endurance and connection and have that carry over into my posing, because I feel like that's lacked in the years that I've been competing. So I just do 3 straight sets here and try to get as many reps as I can, really get a good stretch, and then contract the abdomen all the way through the range of motion and get that pause at the very top. And that wrapped up my pull day. That was it, guys. So moving forward over these next few weeks, it's definitely going to be getting into the push time where we're really getting really lean. Again, the idea is to kind of keep the fat loss rate at a good pace, but a little slower than what it has been going. I don't want to go so fast and have those last pounds just be depletion to get down. I want to have true body fat loss down to get down under 212. And then at the very end, I can increase food again and back off cardio and get that like fuller look and just be shredded. So I think it's going to be a really good look. Metabolically, I'm in a great spot, so I'm really happy with that. And that's it for this update, guys. So let me know if you have any questions or comments. Leave them below. I'll be happy to answer those for you. If there's something you want to see me talk about on these videos, let me know. My full diet and workout is posted below, so you can check it out. See you guys next time.